A halfling slinks through the north ward of Waterdeep, his sharp eyes scanning the bustling streets for a mark. Dressed in tattered leather armor atop dark clothes, he moves with a graceful swiftness. The wealthy residents of this part of the city are his prime targets, and he can sense the weight of their purses and pockets as they brush past him. As he rounds a corner, he sees a group of merchants gathered around a cart of exotic spices and rare teas. He sidles up to the cart, pretending to examine the wares while covertly eyeing the merchants' valuables.
Good day to you, small man. Would you care to sample our latest shipment of cinnamon? It's been imported all the way from
The halfling nods and takes a small taste of the spice, savoring the sweet and spicy flavor.
Not bad,
He says with a grin.
but I'm just here to conduct a little business of my own, if you know what I mean.
He looks back lustfully toward the crowds of unsuspecting townsfolk.
A rogue after my own heart. Just be careful, my friend. The City Watch is cracking down on crime in these parts.
He thanks the merchant for the warning and slips away, his eyes still scanning the crowds. As he weaves through the throngs of people, he hears snippets of conversation and gossip.
I hear the Lord's Alliance is planning a big meeting at the castle.
Gregor says he saw a strange figure lurking in the alleys near the docks.
The Zentarim are up to their old tricks again, I hear.
The rogue listens with half an ear, his mind focused on his rogue instincts. But he can't help but feel a sense of excitement at the thought of the various factions and intrigues swirling around him in this vast and complex city. Eris Thornhill grew up on the streets, honing his skills in sleight of hand and deception in order to survive. Despite his criminal background, Eris has a good heart and is always willing to help those in need, especially when it comes to sticking it to those in power. He is a skilled lockpicker and pickpocket, and has been known to use his charm to get what he wants. Eris is always on the lookout for his next big score, but he knows that sometimes the best way to get ahead is by helping others. As he walks down the crowded street in the North Ward of Waterdeep, surrounded by merchants, beggars, and noble lords, Eris overhears two guards talking about a recent robbery at a nearby jewelry shop. They mention that the thieves stole a valuable gemstone called the Eye of the Night. The guards seem stumped and mention that the merchant is offering a modest reward to anyone who can recover the stolen item. Eris's curiosity is piqued by the notion of such a valuable gemstone, and he decides to investigate the robbery himself. The North Ward is a very well-maintained and clean part of the city with tall buildings made of stone, ornate decorations, and architectural flourishes. The district is known for its wealthy residents and upscale shops, and Eris sees people walking around dressed in fine clothes, giving him the sense that this is where the city's elite live. On the street where he is standing, Eris sees a variety of shops and businesses, including a bakery with a line out the door, a tailor shop with mannequins in the window wearing extravagant clothing, and a leatherworking shop with a sign boasting high-quality goods. He also sees a group of street performers, including a jester juggling knives and a musician playing a lute. Looking towards the trade ward, Eris notices that it is a bit more crowded and bustling with people, as it is a hub for commerce and trade. There are several jewelry shops as well as other shops selling various goods such as food, clothing, and weapons. He can also see a guard tower in the distance, likely where the guards are stationed. Eris approaches the two guards and says,
Excuse me, sirs, but I couldn't help overhearing you talk about a gem that was stolen.
The two guards turn to face him, and one of them speaks up.
Yes, that's right. We're looking for the Eye of the Night, a valuable gemstone that was stolen from a nearby jeweler. Do you have any information that could help us?
Eris explains to the guards that he doesn't have any information about the robbery, but he might be able to help recover the gemstone. The guards look at him skeptically, but they are willing to hear him out.
What makes you think you can help?
One of the guards asks. Eris explains that he has some exposure to the underground world of Waterdeep, and that he might be able to track down the thieves or recover the gemstone through less than legal means. The guards are still hesitant, but they seem intrigued by his offer.
What do you want in return?
The other guard asks. Eris tells them that he is looking for a reward, and that he thinks the stolen gemstone would be a valuable prize.
The reward is the prize, not the stone.
The guard clarifies.
Yes, of course.
The guard nods suspiciously and tells the halfling that the merchant is offering a reward of 100 gold pieces for the return of the Eye of the Night.
What did you say your name was?
Ignoring the question.
I think that I should like to look into the matter. Which of these fine establishments were robbed? I might like to talk to the shopkeeper. Maybe he can provide me with a clue.
One of the guards replies.
The store that was robbed is called Goldcrest Jewellery. It's located in the trade ward, not too far from here. The owner's name is Aaron Goldcrest. He might be able to give you some more information about what happened.
The other guard hands Eris a small piece of parchment with the name and location of the jewelry store, as well as the reward offer of 100 gold pieces for the return of the Eye of the Night.
Be careful.
The first guard warns.
We don't want you getting hurt in the process of trying to recover the gemstone. If you do find anything out, come back and let us know.
Yes, naturally, of course.
Signaling his acknowledgement, the halfling holds a hand in the air as he turns and leaves the guards where they stand. He takes a deep breath and makes his way toward the trade ward, ready to begin his investigation. As the halfling enters the bustling trade ward, the crowds grow thicker and more frenzied. Eris resists the urge to explore the pockets of all the people around him. He's on a mission after all. The sounds of haggling and laughter fill the air. Street vendors sell fresh fruits and vegetables, and artisans display their wares on tables and in booths. Colorful buildings made of stone and wood line the street, with signs advertising various businesses. Blacksmiths, carpenters, apothecaries, and other shops and stalls can be seen. As Eris approaches the center of the ward, the buildings become more ornate and elaborate, where the wealthier merchants and nobles tend to congregate. Finally, Eris arrives at Goldcrest Jewelry, a small, unassuming shop with a sign above the door depicting a golden crest. The windows are covered in bars, likely added after the recent robbery. Inside, the shop is cozy and well lit, with gems and jewelry displayed on shelves and in cases. A pair of armed men stand guard inside the shop's entrance. They eye Eris suspiciously as he passes through the doors. The middle-aged shopkeeper, Aaron Goldcrest, greets Eris with a polite smile.
Welcome to Goldcrest Jewelry.
Aaron says.
Is there anything I can help you find today?
Eris notices that Aaron seems a bit nervous, likely due to the recent robbery.
Actually, I'm here about the robbery.
Eris says.
I heard that you had some valuable items stolen.
Aaron's expression darkens.
Yes, unfortunately, that's true.
He says.
The Eye of the Night was stolen, along with several other valuable gems and pieces of jewelry. I've been working with the guards to try and track down the thieves, but we haven't had much luck so far.
Eris nods, pretending to be sympathetic.
I understand.
Eris says.
But I might be able to help you out. I have some experience in these sorts of things, and I'm willing to do what it takes to recover the stolen items.
Aaron looks at him skeptically.
I appreciate the offer.
He says.
But I'm not sure I can trust a stranger with something so valuable. Do you have any credentials or references?
Eris smiles, pulling out the piece of parchment with the reward offer that the guards gave him.
I think this should serve as a reference.
Eris says.
You have authorized the city guard to offer a reward for the safe return of the Eye of the Night, and I plan on claiming it.
Aaron nods, seeming to be slightly convinced.
Well, I suppose it can't hurt to have more eyes looking out for the stolen items.
He says.
If you find anything out, please let me know.
I have some follow-up questions.
Eris says, approaching the counter and leaning in slightly.
I was hoping you could give me a bit more information about the robbery. Anything that might help me track down the thieves.
Aaron looks hesitant for a moment before nodding slowly.
I can tell you that the thieves broke in through the back door.
He says.
We've reinforced the lock since then, but it was a bit of a weak spot before. They took several valuable items, including the Eye of the Night, as well as some rings and necklaces. We estimate the total value of the stolen items to be around 2,000 gold pieces.
Eris nods, his mind working quickly.
Did anyone see anything suspicious around the time of the robbery?
Not that I'm aware of. We were closed at the time, so there weren't any witnesses. The guards have been questioning people in the area, but so far they haven't turned up anything useful.
Just a couple more questions for you, sir.
Yes, of course.
What can you tell me about the Eye of the Night? What's so special about this gem?
Aaron's face takes on a wistful expression as he looks at Eris.
It is an incredibly valuable gemstone. It's a deep blue color like the midnight sky, and it seems to shimmer in the light. It's said to have magical properties, although I'm not exactly sure what they are. It's been in my family for generations, and it's one of the most prized possessions we have. I'm just sick over the fact that it was stolen.
Eris nods, taking in the information.
Do you suspect anyone who you think might have taken it? Is there anyone in particular who may have wanted it?
He asks. Aaron shakes his head.
I wish I did, but I don't have any enemies as far as I know. And none of my employees have any motive to steal from me. It's a real mystery.
Well, thank you for your time.
As the halfling is about to leave and head back to the ward, his attention is drawn to a slip of paper that lies partially hidden under a counter. Eris quickly picks up the piece of paper and examines it. It's a small slip of parchment, slightly crumpled and worn around the edges. There's writing on it in a shaky hand, as if it was written in a hurry. The note reads, "Red herring tomorrow." There's no signature or other identifying information on the note, but Eris gets the sense that this might be a lead worth following.
Do you recognize this?
Eris shows Aaron the piece of paper he found, carefully concealing his suspicion that it might be connected to the robbery.
I found this on the floor. Do you know anything about it?
I've never seen this before.
Aaron takes the note from him and studies it for a moment, his brow furrowing. Realizing that the note must have been dropped on accident by one of the thieves.
Maybe someone wants to make an exchange for the stolen items, but I have no idea who it could be.
Eris nods, taking the note back.
Thanks. I'll look into it.
Should I let the guards know? This could be an important lead.
The shopkeeper asks, as the halfling is already heading to the door.
No need.
Eris replies, waving a dismissive hand at the jeweler.
I will speak with them.
Under his breath, adding,
when I get around to it.
As Eris leaves the shop, he can feel the excitement building inside him. He has a lead on the thieves, and he's determined to follow it. The only red herring the halfling is familiar with is a tavern located in the Dock Ward, a district known for its rough-and-tumble atmosphere. It's a bit of a distance from the Trade Ward where Goldcrest Jewelry is located, but it shouldn't take too long to get there by foot or by horse-drawn carriage. Eris departs from the Trade Ward and sets off towards the harbor. The journey takes longer than he anticipated, and he encounters several unsavory individuals along the way. However, Eris maintains a vigilant demeanor and tries to keep a low profile. Having left the North Ward earlier in the afternoon, he now estimates it to be early evening as the sun begins to set, casting long shadows over the streets of Waterdeep. As he arrives in the Dock Ward, he sees the Red Herring Tavern on the corner of a busy street. The tavern looks old and weathered, with peeling paint and a faded sign above the door. There are a few patrons standing outside, smoking and drinking, but Eris can't make out their faces in the dim light. Eris, left with no other option, decides to surveil the tavern, trying to keep an eye on patrons who arrive, particularly for anyone who immediately looks like they're trying to make a transaction with another patron. Eris finds a good vantage point where he can watch the comings and goings of the patrons. From his hiding spot, he sees a few more people entering and leaving the tavern. Some of them seem to be regulars, while others look like they might be newcomers to the area. As he waits and observes, Eris sees a man in a hooded cloak approaching the tavern. The man looks around furtively before entering the tavern. Eris can't see his face clearly, but he gets the sense that the man might be up to something. A few minutes later, a woman with a red scarf around her neck approaches the tavern. She glances over her shoulder nervously before going inside. Eris notes that she seems to be carrying a small pouch, which might contain the stolen gemstone. This could be it, the halfling thinks, as he decides to follow them into the tavern, keeping his distance so as not to arouse any suspicion. As he enters, he sees a few rough-looking sailors sitting at the bar, as well as a group of men playing cards in the corner. The man in the hooded cloak and the woman with the red scarf are nowhere to be seen. The halfling quickly surveys the tavern. He notices a narrow staircase leading up to a second floor. He also sees a back door at the far end of the room, partially obscured by a heavy curtain. Eris carefully approaches the back door and peeks through the curtain, trying not to make too much noise. He sees a small alleyway behind the tavern, littered with refuse and debris. There are a few crates and barrels stacked against the wall, and a few empty bottles scattered around. As he scans the area, Eris notices a couple of shadows moving near the end of the alley. He can't see who or what is causing the movement, but he gets the sense that something suspicious might be happening. Thinking quickly, the halfling looks around. There are a few half-empty mugs of ale left on tables, presumably left behind by patrons who have already left the tavern. Some of the tables and chairs are in disarray, indicating that the tavern has been quite busy recently. Eris carefully picks up one of the half-empty mugs of ale from a nearby table and takes it with him as he makes his way toward the back door. As he exits the tavern and enters the dark alleyway, he begins to sway and stumble, pretending to be drunk. He takes a long swig of ale from the mug and burps loudly, hoping to blend in with the disheveled-looking folks who frequent this area. As he gets closer to the shadows, he can hear a low murmur of voices. He stops for a moment and takes another sip of ale, pretending to be unsteady on his feet. As he approaches the end of the alley, he sees two men huddled together, their backs to him. They're both wearing dark cloaks, and their voices are too low for Eris to make out what they're saying. Continuing to stumble forward, the halfling's eyes darting back and forth between the men. He takes another swig of ale and pretends to stumble again, hoping to get a better look at them. The men don't seem to notice him, so he edges closer, keeping his head down and trying to appear uninterested. Finally, he gets close enough to hear their conversation. They're talking in hushed tones about a valuable gemstone, and Eris realizes that they must be the thieves who stole the Eye of the Night. Incredulously, he ponders his dumb luck that he hadn't decided to pursue the man with the woman in the tavern, assuming that they'd gone upstairs. Infidelity was probably the sneaky business they were up to. Suddenly, one of the men turns around and sees Eris stumbling toward them.
"What do you want, drunkard?"
He snarls. Eris thinks quickly, pretending to be even more inebriated.
I just wanted to...
He slurs.
I didn't mean any...
The two men exchange a glance, and Eris can see that they're suspicious of him. He wonders if he's made a mistake by revealing himself. Eris staggers to the left and falls down, pretending to be unconscious. He hears the two men approach him, and they nudge him with their feet to see if he's still alive. He remains still, listening intently to their conversation.
I don't like this.
One of the men says.
We shouldn't have come here. It's too risky.
"We have no choice."
The other man replies.
"The boss wants the Eye of the Night, and we have to deliver it. We'll wait for our contact to arrive, make the exchange, and then get out of here."
The halfling can feel his heart pounding in his chest. He knows that this is his chance to recover the stolen gemstone, but he needs to act quickly and carefully. He lies there for a few more moments, trying to think of a plan. Finally, he takes a deep breath and slowly opens his eyes. He looks up at the two men, pretending to be confused and disoriented.
What happened?
He groans, rubbing his head.
"You fell down. You're lucky we found you before anyone else did."
I must have had too much ale.
The men help him to his feet, and Eris stumbles around a bit, trying to regain his balance. As he does, he bumps into one of the men and reaches out to steady himself. In the process, he deftly slips his hand into the man's pocket and pulls out a small pouch. He quickly conceals it in his own pocket, hoping that the man hasn't noticed.
What are you doing here anyway?
The other man asks, looking Eris up and down. Eris puts on his best innocent expression.
I was just looking for a place to lay down. I didn't mean to cause any trouble.
The men exchange another wary glance before one of them speaks.
"You should go home. This isn't a safe place to be."
Eris nods, pretending to be grateful. As Eris stumbles away from the two men, he feels a surge of excitement and relief. He knows that he's taken a big risk, but it seems to have paid off. He glances down at the small pouch in his pocket and can feel the weight of the gemstone inside. He knows that he needs to be careful, though. The two men will realize soon that the gem is missing and come after him. Eris leaves the dock ward, trying to keep a low profile and blend in with the crowds. He weaves his way through the streets, avoiding any alleyways or dark corners where he might be ambushed. As he reaches the market ward, he breathes a sigh of relief. This part of the city feels a bit safer with more people and fewer shady characters lurking around. As he looks around, Eris notices a sign for the Silver Moon Inn, which is located just off the main market square. The inn looks clean and well-maintained, with a cozy atmosphere and a friendly-looking innkeeper standing in the doorway. Eris enters the inn and looks around. The main room is warm and inviting, with a large fireplace at one end and a few tables scattered around. A few patrons are sitting at the tables, eating, drinking, and chatting. The innkeeper greets Eris with a smile and asks if he needs a room for the night. Eris nods and asks to see a room. The innkeeper leads him up a narrow staircase to a small but comfortable room with a large bed, a dresser, and a window overlooking the street. Satisfied that it's safe, he agrees to rent the room for the night. Settled in, Eris heads back downstairs to the main room. He orders a mug of ale and sits down at a table, trying to relax and enjoy the warm fire and friendly atmosphere. As he sips his ale, he glances around the room, keeping a wary eye for any signs of danger or trouble. After some time, the halfling plucks a couple of coins from a pouch on his belt, sets them on the table, and then heads up to his room. He takes a seat by the window, looking out over the busy street below. He takes a deep breath and tries to calm his nerves. He knows that he's made trouble for himself. Before he can determine just how deep the trouble actually is, he'll need to find out who the two men were and who their boss is. As he sits there lost in thought, Eris hears a faint tapping at his door. He looks up, startled, and gets to his feet.
Who is it?
He calls out.
It's the innkeeper.
A voice calls back.
May I come in?
Eris hesitates for a moment, wondering if it's safe to let the innkeeper in. Finally, he decides to take a chance and unlocks the door. The innkeeper enters, looking a bit nervous.
What's going on?
The halfling asks, trying to sound casual. The innkeeper clears his throat.
I'm sorry to bother you, sir, but there are a few men downstairs who are asking about you. They say they have some business to discuss with you.
Eris's heart starts to race. He wonders if the two men from the alleyway have tracked him down.
What do they look like?
He asks, trying to sound calm.
They're big fellows dressed in dark clothes.
The innkeeper says.
I don't like the look of them, sir. Should I tell them to leave?
Eris thinks for a moment, trying to come up with a plan. He knows that he can't let the two men find him, but he also doesn't want to draw too much attention to himself. Finally, he makes a decision.
Tell them that I'm not here. Tell them that I've left for the night.
The innkeeper nods and heads towards the door.
As you wish, sir. But be careful, these men don't look like they're up to any good.
He watches as the innkeeper leaves the room, a rising feeling of despair sinking into his gut. His mind swimming with ideas of how he can get himself out of this mess. But realizing that he doesn't have the luxury to carefully plot out his next moves, he decides that any action is better than no action. Eris throws open the window and leans out, looking around for any possible escape routes. He notices that the inn is located on a corner of the street, and that there's a narrow alleyway running alongside the building. Looking over, he can see that rough stones trim the corners of the building, and it appears that there could be handholds, perhaps enough to get him up to the roof. Eris decides to take a chance. He quickly gathers his belongings and climbs out the window. Shimmying over to the corner, he tests his hold on the stones leading up, making sure that he can hold his weight. The situation seems precarious, but what choice does he have? And so, with a deep breath, Eris starts to scale up the wall, using his strength and dexterity to keep himself steady. He climbs slowly and carefully, trying not to make any noise that might attract attention. Finally, he reaches the roof of the inn. He looks around, trying to get his bearings. From up here, he can see the surrounding buildings and streets, but it's hard to tell where he should go next. Determining his options, he figures he could attempt to cross to another roof of an adjacent building from here. He would need to carefully navigate across the rooftops and potentially find a safe way down to the street level. However, it's important to note that this is a risky maneuver and could potentially attract unwanted attention from guards or other people on the street. He would need to weigh the risks and rewards of this plan before taking action. Eris finally decides that for now at least, he will remain hidden within the shadow of a chimney on the roof and wait there, listening to hear of any sign that he has been discovered. Why take unnecessary risks if the men have accepted the innkeeper's story that he had left already? Eris quickly finds a hiding spot behind a chimney on the roof and crouches down, trying to make himself as small as possible. He listens carefully, trying to detect any sounds of movement or activity that might indicate that he's been discovered. For a few minutes, everything is quiet. Eris can hear the distant sounds of the city below, but nothing seems out of the ordinary. He starts to relax a bit, thinking that he might have escaped unnoticed. But then he hears a faint sound of footsteps on the roof. He freezes, trying to stay perfectly still. The footsteps get closer and closer until Eris can hear someone breathing heavily right beside him. He takes a deep breath and decides to take a chance. He quickly stands up and spins around, drawing his short sword in one smooth motion. In front of him stands a hooded figure dressed in dark clothes and holding a knife. The figure looks surprised but not scared. A female voice.
Well, well, what do we have here?
The figure says with a sly grin. Eris's heart races as he sizes up his opponent. He knows that he's in a dangerous situation and that he needs to be careful. The hooded woman attacks first, lunging forward with her dagger. Eris ducks and weaves, narrowly avoiding the deadly blade. He retaliates with a swift strike of his own, his short sword slicing through the air with deadly accuracy. The two exchange blows, their weapons clashing in a shower of sparks. The hooded woman's dagger finds its mark, piercing through Eris's leather armor and cutting into his flesh. The wound is deep, and Eris can feel the warm blood flowing from it. He tries to ignore the pain and stay focused on the fight, but he knows that he will need to attend to his injury soon. Despite the pain, Eris remains focused, his eyes fixed on his opponent. He uses the environment to his advantage, darting behind a chimney to dodge a particularly vicious attack. The hooded figure growls in frustration, but she doesn't give up. The fight continues. The two combatants locked in a deadly dance. Eris's short sword strikes true, causing the woman to stagger back in pain. Embracing the opportunity, the halfling, with a forward thrust, drives his short sword deep into the hooded woman's chest. With a cough of blood staining her lips, she collapses to the ground, dead. Despite the violence of the fight, Eris remains focused and in control. He is a skilled combatant, and he knows how to use his weapons and his environment to his advantage. Even with the injuries he sustained, he emerges victorious, ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead. The small man stands there for a moment, catching his breath and surveying his surroundings. The rooftop is quiet now, with only the sound of the city below breaking the silence. The moon hangs overhead, a pale orb in the night sky. Eris knows that he must act quickly, lest he be discovered by someone else. With no time to lose, the halfling searches the body of the woman at his feet. He finds a few items of interest. She had a small pouch containing 10 gold pieces, which Eris quickly pockets. He also finds a small, intricately carved wooden box tucked into the woman's belt. As he opens the box, he sees that it contains a collection of fine gems, including a few small diamonds and rubies. Eris can see that these are worth a fair amount of money, and he tucks the box into his pack. Using his skills as a rogue, Eris moves quickly and confidently, leaping from rooftop to rooftop with a grace that belies his injuries. Despite the pain and discomfort, he knows that he needs to keep moving, to stay one step ahead of any potential threats. As Eris makes his way down from the roof, he is careful to move quietly and stealthily. He knows that the sound of his footsteps could alert any nearby guards or other enemies, and he does not want to attract any unwanted attention. As he makes his way down to the street, Eris takes a moment to catch his breath and look around. The city is quiet and still, and he can see the glow of torches and lanterns in the distance. He knows that he needs to be careful, to stay hidden in the shadows and avoid any areas where he might be spotted. Taking a deep breath, Eris sets off into the night, his mind already turning to the next challenge that awaits him. He clutches the pouch tightly, feeling the weight of the Eye of the Night inside. He knows that this gem is especially valuable, and he is eager to find a way to sell it for a high price. At the same time, he is aware that the gem is also dangerous and might even be magical, and he needs to be careful not to attract any unwanted attention or reveal his possession of the stone to the wrong people. Eris thinks to himself, perhaps it's time to seek adventure somewhere less dangerous. He will say his farewells to Waterdeep, at least for the time being.